Well, when I designed the bubble works at Chessington, I used a gag writer called Andrew Offaler, who was a genius. Andrew had done a lot of work for cartoon animations as a storyboarder and a gag writer. He had an incredible sense of humour, and the two of us worked together on the concept of the bubble works. The problem was, who could we get to make it? And Keith Sparks had a very successful little business based in Colchester. Principally he started off building sort of Father Christmas grottos for department stores, and then built a number of haunted walkthroughs. But all these haunted walkthroughs for amusement parks and theme parks had this wonderfully wicked sense of humour to it. And it was very obvious that sense of humour would work perfectly for the bubble works. So I got in touch with Keith. We immediately developed a rapport. We had exactly the same sense of humour. And I used Keith for doing the bubble works. And then when we came to do the haunted house at Alton Towers, it was a no-brainer. And Keith did the haunted house at Alton Towers.
We'll probably come back to some Chessington stuff maybe a bit later. It's a question I've been asking everyone. Your answer might be a bit different, but what are your first ever memories of the Alton Towers resort?
Well, when Chessington had proved to be a success, Pearson, who owned Madame Tussauds, said, right, we've now got to develop this as the market leader. And I looked around. We looked at all sorts of undeveloped sites around the country, and the sites that we could get planning consent for were so hideous. They were in brownfield industrial sites that to make them look attractive as a theme park would have cost a fortune. Those sites that were attractive, we couldn't get planning permission. And many years previously, I had visited Alton Towers because Brian Collins had the old fun fair at Alton Towers. And I knew Brian, and on a number of occasions I had gone to Alton Towers, and he had a very traditional, conventional little fairground that consisted of a waltzer, a dodgem, a set of gallopers, and the towers themselves obviously didn't have any relationship to the fun fair. There was a little circus, there was a miniature railway, and the whole thing was very, very similar to what I was landed with at Chessington, except that at Chessington there was also the zoo. But Chessington had the fun fair and the circus and so on. So my first memories were going to Alton Towers in the early 70s when Brian had his fun fair there. And then John Broome, who owned Alton Towers, decided that he wanted to move on, and he put the corkscrew in, and the pay one price policy and the fun fair didn't fit. And so the rest is history, really. But that was my first memory of Alton Towers.
We went down the rapids the other day
Right.
and filmed some stuff, and I talked a little bit about how that whole area was redeveloped. I think a lot of people get a bit misconstrued in Tanya Canyon, but it was always there. It just changed a hell of a lot when you kind of came in and changed that whole area, opened it right up. So I don't know if you could perhaps tell us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, the Rapids ride was there when we bought Alton Towers. This time, after Chessington, I was made a director of a company called Tussauds Group Park Developments. So I had the responsibility of coming up with a master plan for Alton Towers, and it was very apparent that we had to do something very quick to stamp the Tussauds quality and innovative approach on Alton Towers to let the world know that it was changing, it was very different. And we had to do something quick that wasn't going to be planning contentious, because British planning law is quite convoluted, and it takes a long time to get planning consent, particularly on a sensitive site like Alton Towers. So I looked at Alton Towers and thought, well, what can we do quickly? And it was very, very apparent indeed that the Rapids ride was certainly missing a lot of opportunities. I have always believed that for everybody that rides a ride, at least 2 or 3 other people can be entertained by it, by watching it. And that means having that ride all around you so that you can stand and make eye contact with the people that are riding and share in their enjoyment. And then you make the decision as to whether you want to ride or not. In the case of the Rapids ride, if it's a cold day and you don't want to get wet, you will decide, no, I don't want to ride it. But you can still have a great deal of fun. And the Rapids ride was hidden away unless you actually made the decision to go through an entrance and along a chain link fence queue line. You didn't see the thing. And this was just crazy. So I worked out how we could route people through the area that the Rapids ride wound around, and in doing so allowed them to actually enjoy that ride. And then wind another ride, in other words a runaway train, a powered coaster ride, through that ride in such a way that, again, it wasn't planning contentious. So that was phase 1 of the development, which we were able to get off the ground very, very quickly, whilst we tackled the problem of what on earth to do with the old Thunder Looper. The Thunder Looper had temporary planning consent. The planners hated it, the locals hated it, Alton Towers management hated the thing because it was dreadfully unreliable, and the sooner we got rid of it the better. But what on earth could we do with the site? And by developing the Rapids ride in such a way that it provided also a through route through to that part of the park, meant that in the long term it all fitted into a master plan.